Welcome back, dudes. In this episode, we're going to finally try to start the XJ6. A couple days ago, a car popped up. It's a 73 Jaguar XJ6, and I have really never been into these cars.
Is the person who drives it a bit, what's the word? I'm not quite sure. The sort of person who would go away for a weekend with his wife to a hotel, some romantic place, and spend the entire night flirting outrageously with a waitress, and it's okay because he's got a jet.
Again, I wouldn't really care that much, except it was really affordable, and it was about 5 minutes from my house. So I went and checked it out. It's a California car. It still has Cali plates on it from 1989, and the current owner has owned it for about 20 years. I brought some starting fluid and some tools. I'm gonna see if I can get it to fire, and if I can get it to fire, I might be purchasing a 70s.
That's a Jag drive. You can get away with anything. I'm terribly sorry. I ran over your dog. Oh, in my Jag.
This is the car that was known as saving Jaguar, and what happened was in the 60s when they originally designed the E-Type, it looked amazing, everybody wanted one. They couldn't build them fast enough. So their two doors, they were really constrained by production, but their sedans were hopelessly out of date, pretty much from the 50s, and they needed something new. It was more like the E-Type. That's where this car came into play. So let's take everything successful about the E-Type and put it into a sedan form, hence the engine, trans, and rear end being from an E-Type. All the ones that came to America had automatics. So the only manual transmission ones you're gonna find have been swapped. There's a ton of different transmissions that you can use here, but from what I understand, this is a Jag transmission. I'm assuming it's from an E-Type or a Mark 10 or something. So what's in this glove box? I don't know. It's locked, and I'm not sure what key opens it, so. Oh, there we go. What do we got in here? What? For normal use, up to 100 miles an hour, fill it up to 26 and 25 PSI. However, if you're going to be traveling above 100 miles an hour, they want you to do it at 31 to 36 PSI. Nice. This car has 2 fuel tanks. I don't know why, it was just a traditional thing they did, so you can see that you can switch the fuel tanks from left to right here, which should also change this gauge. What someone did add was, I guess the guy who owned this, that converted this to stick shift, was a pilot, so he added some goofy 1980s fuel computer thing that also had cruise control, so I'm going to be trying to get rid of this completely. Pretty decent interior, to be honest. Again, this car supposedly only had 79,000 miles. So this is one of the reasons I bought this car. This is an XK engine. This is the same engine that was used in the E-Type. What was stock was on all these XJ6s, they came with 2 SU carburetors. Well, you can see here, I have 3. Obviously, some sort of enthusiast owned this car. They swapped an intake and carbs off of an E-Type onto it, and they swapped in a manual transmission. So what I effectively have here is a 4-door E-Type. Same engine, same intake system and carburetors, which should be another 20 to 30 horsepower, same transmission, and the really odd thing, it has the same rear end as an E-Type. Unlike most cars, the disc brakes are mounted right against the diff. This was originally designed and went into production in 1961. And this same rear end was basically used until 2006 in the Aston Martin DB7 and the Jaguar XK8. So it's been around a long time. I had no idea that these cars were that exotic underneath the skin. So can you hook up the battery charger to the battery clamp so we can just get some power to roll down the window? Uh-oh. I swear the windows worked before, didn't they?
I thought so.
That's a good start to not have the windows even work on this.
Oh my gosh.
I'm gonna hit the brakes once as a test.
Okay.
Yeah, stop is good.
Good.
So what we're gonna do to start here is we're gonna use an air compressor and just blow out the valley and get rid of all the dirt and shit in there. Then we're gonna pull the plugs and we're gonna dump some Marble Mystery Oil in each cylinder and just let it soak on those rings and loosen them up. All right, boys, so we've been soaking the top of the pistons with Marble Mystery Oil. The plugs are out. It is a perfect time to do a compression test. I want to do this before I get to the carbs, because if one cylinder is bad, that would substantially change what I'm doing with this car. And you just connect the gauge, and all we need to do now is crank the engine. Unfortunately, I have a stuck fuel float, so if I turn the ignition on at all, it's gonna just start pouring fuel out the bottom of my engine. So to prevent the car from just pissing fuel all over the ground, what I'm trying to do is cut the power to the fuel pumps. And what I found was two non-standard fuel pumps with no way to disconnect the power. Now I could just unbolt these and that would break the ground and I guess they wouldn't pump anymore. That's a good idea, but I think what I'm gonna do instead is just pull a fuse, and I've never seen the fuse panel in this car. I wanna share it with you guys because it's weird. You'll notice that in the center here, the wood is held on with what should be two threaded little fasteners here. Well, what you do is you unthread those, and this whole panel is on a hinge. And that's where a lot of the car's electrical system is. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna look for power going to the fuel tank selector switch right here, and we're just gonna pull the cords out of it, or that should stop the power going to the fuel pump. This is so weird. With the power to the fuel pump cut off, now we're gonna go back to the compression test. And what we're gonna do is just crank the car for about 4 seconds with the throttle mashed all the way down. So dudes, you know when a project car just has you beaten so bad that like your energy is down, your vibes are down, and you just want to give up and you list it for sale? That's what I did a few days ago, because this has been the most difficult car I've ever worked on. I'm going to show you what I mean. All I'm trying to do is remove the carbs. That's it. Here are the carbs. There is no bolt head in here. I can get a wrench on this one. There's no way to turn the wrench. Now I have probably spent at this point 10 hours trying to remove the carbs. I have soaked this thing in Croil and I've beaten the shit out of it with a 4-pound sledgehammer. I have torched it with some MAP gas and nothing was working, dudes. This intake manifold did not want to budge an inch. I tried prying on it in a few places and that didn't work. And this seemed to be the ticket. A tie rod separator. I just started tapping it right here. I saw movement on this stud, and now you can see there's actually a little bit of a gap there. So that means that this intake manifold is finally moving. I think these are going to be free. Oh my God. So before I even disassemble these, I'm gonna spray them off with some brake cleaner or carb cleaner, whatever. I'm gonna throw some cancer on here and agitate it with a brush and just get as much dirt off of these things before I take them inside. now that I have them off the car, we are going to disassemble them one by one, rebuild them one by one. We're going to redo the intake manifold and make everything look as cool as we possibly can, because what else is the point of reality if you can't look cool? To the guys on Jag Lovers that thought I was a dumbass for not being able to get this off, look at this fastener. I don't know what you're supposed to do. You can't really get to it from up here. You can't get to it from the other side. Like, it's right there. And if this fuel line was off, you could get to it, and I can get the fuel line off here and here, but right here, the air cleaner's in the way. Bling blang, check that out. Looks pretty good. I mean, this is not a show car. I'm just trying to clean it up a little bit and make it look a little better, so I'm happy with it. All right, dude, so the intake for the Jag, I was gonna Cerakote it, I changed my mind, I just started messing with it, and I'm gonna polish it. The reason I am making this video, though, is not for most of the work. I've done most of it already. I'm leaving this in here because that's hard to get to, and I have just sanded the primary surface here on the top half of this intake casting down to about 400 grit, and then I also did the edge of the flange here. And the reason I am filming this is that I bought these felt discs you can put on an angle grinder. They I think they were advertised on Instagram or something. Man, they work incredible. So again, 400 grit. I don't know if that shows up, but that's almost a mirror now. There you go. Now you can see it, bro. But yeah, these felt discs, they work awesome for polishing. So I'm gonna hit the rest of this thing, and then I'll show you what it looks like in a second here. Well, there you go. She's not perfect, but man, that looks a million times better. All right, boys, we're gonna skip ahead a little bit. These are all assembled now. Polished intake and the carbs and the throttle rod and linkages and the choke mechanism installed. I've also installed this completely billet adapter that was, machined by hand. There's nothing CNC'd back then, but this is where the thermostat sits. You can see it's even stamped thermostat right there. And then this is a cast aluminum radiator cap housing with the coolant hoses and whatnot. I've used new brass nuts, stainless bolts, and I got a new cap here, so we're not using the ugly generic 70s one. So this is correct. And then you can see back here, I picked up 3 racing air filters. Now the reason for this is that this stock air filter here is so giant, and once it's mounted to the carbs, it's so hard to get to anything on the carbs. It just effectively blocks off the carbs, so you can't get to anything. You have to go from underneath. I'm hoping that by installing 3 of these, if I need to make any adjustments or do anything, it's just gonna be a lot easier to live with. All right, so I want to show you how I tune these things so far. One thing that I did was if I release these at the same time, they come down at the same time. And that's important. You don't want one of them hanging. So the other thing you want to do is you want to hear that click. And what that's going to mean is it's going to mean your needle here is centered on that seat. Under here, this is where I want to show you guys the mechanism of the throttle and the choke assembly, because it's pretty cool. So unlike a traditional carb where you just have like a cable or something, this is actually going to have something that hooks on this rod. There's this rod that runs under all 3 carbs with these arms and these little linkages going to that butterfly. So this is how you rev the engine. It opens that butterfly, more air flows in, and then the air flowing in at a higher rate is going to push up this plunger, which lets more fuel in because, again, there's the needle in the seat. This is important for the choke mechanism, which is the craziest part of these carbs. So the choke mechanism on all three carbs is on the bottom here, and it's all controlled right here. This is what holds the outer part of the cable, and the inner part of the cable goes onto this little eyelet right here. And it does this. That's all the choke mechanism does. And what it's doing is when I do the choke, there's a little cam on this shaft that pulls downward right on this rod right here. And that goes through the carb. I've polished these rods and greased them with lithium. And then there's this spring assembly. I'm not sure if it's focusing, but when I play with the choke here, you can see the throttle right here is being pushed down by this rod. So again, you go this way. This is off this little cam here on this rod, and then that's going to this little screw right here. Now what I've done to tune these things is I've made sure that there's no gaps between any of these little threaded adjustment screws. They're all about the same amount, and they all hit at exactly the same time. The same thing I did with these are all equalized. So I'm hoping that with these plungers synchronized and all of this stuff synchronized, that it should be a good base starting point that I can at least get the car running and then tune it from there. So the carbs are about ready to be put on, but the engine is not ready yet. I need to replace the oil filter, which is annoying because I'm one of those horizontal ones, so I'm gonna have to get a bucket or something underneath it. But one thing I wanted to do before I started was in the video where I removed the intake, it was a colossal pain in the ass because I had to basically reach my arm under the intake and do everything by feel. I couldn't see anything, and a lot of these studs are pretty crusty. So I've been soaking them with Croil to loosen some of the rust. And what we're gonna do before we install the intake is just run a nut on the studs a few times just to kind of recut those threads and make sure they're clean and there's no gunk on them. So I actually took everything back out, and that was just more of a test fit. I got everything sitting right there. I did not have the throttle shaft in the right spot, and I noticed a fuel leak right here. So we're going to go ahead and replace some of the fuel line quick. But anything that's looking suspect, I want to just do right now. Otherwise, I'm going to have to take the carbs back off or do everything under the carbs, which is going to be really annoying. So far, I have no opinion of this engine other than it's really difficult to access things. When you take on and off an intake manifold, you pretty much just have to lay on the fender for like 45 minutes. It sucks. You can't see what you're doing at all. And you're in this really uncomfortable position, so if there's a reason that Jag techs get paid a lot of money, it's probably because of crap like this, because this is pretty dumb. But I'm still excited about the car. It's almost ready to start. I really aesthetically hate the air conditioning system because it just goes right over the top of this engine, which looks pretty cool. So if the AC doesn't work, I'm hoping to ditch all that, but maybe it'll work. I have no idea. I haven't put on the air filters yet. It looks like I need to get some sort of spacer for them because they are hitting the fuel rail. Check this out, I did this too. I got a package from England, and one of the things that was in it was Euro taillights. We got the Euro on this side and the DOT spec on this side, so yeah, I think I'm gonna restore these a little bit and try to put them both on and see what it looks like, because right now I'm digging the amber. We'll see. All right, boys, it's the next day. I ordered a fuel pump off Amazon. It's just a generic one. The Jaguar pumps are like $300 to $400. This was $18. And as far as I can tell, it flows the same amount of fuel at the same fuel pressure. The important thing with a car like this is you don't want to go over maybe 3 to 4 pounds of pressure, which this is rated for. So we have the $17 Amazon pump installed, and I just verified that it made some noise when I turned the key on. So now we're going to go crank it, knowing that we have a good working fuel pump, and see what happens. So I have disassembled the carbs here, and I want to show you that you can see the fuel is like right there, and you can see the fuel, it's like right there, And you can see the fuel. It's like right there. So like I rebuilt these to spec, and I'm pretty sure the level of fuel is correct, because as soon as this goes down, it starts filling up again. But for some reason, they won't start. Now I'm going to go mess with the choke, and we're going to see if that moves at all. I really got into this deeper today, and I found out that when the choke was activated, it did not drop the jets. So Sarah helped me readjust the choke cable, which was kind of annoying. And now we're going to see what happens with fresh fuel and rebuilt carbs and a choke that works.
I'm ready. Stop. Fuel is pissing out of something.
Where?
Right here. So whatever this is, it was just, yeah, you can see it a little bit.
Extra tight.
Round 2, fight. Oh. I heard something. Come on. That was an engine, though. That was an engine.
I turned it off because it started revving.
There we go. Yeah, baby girl.
I'm going to readjust all the idle screws, because when I couldn't get it to start before, I was messing with everything. So I'm going to set everything back to factory spec. We'll try it again in a little bit. I just adjusted the idle screws so that a 2000s feeler gauge can fit right here, here, here. But she seems to be idling. I'm just over here looking for leaks, looking for problems. This is incredible. All right, I readjusted the idle again. Let's see what it does. Pretty steady idle, boys. Check that out. What do we got? We got power, we got oil pressure, we got normal temps here, and it says we've got no fuel, so I'm guessing the sender's bad, but all right, that's the longest I've run it. I can see coolant coming out right here, so it looks like I need to tighten that. I see another thing happening right back here. It looks more like steam than smoke. Overall, boys, she's a freaking runner. Oh, what do I got here? Oh yeah, definitely coolant.
So he's not quite sure with the transmission, what the layout is, so he's playing with it a little bit there, I think.
Still have the choke on, so it's a little weird to drive. I don't want to just go drive it. Should I just go drive it? Sarah, we should go for a ride in this. Yeah, like right now. Let's do it.
No.
Yep, we're just gonna go around the block.
I'm not. I'm staying here in case we need rescuing.